Hi, my name is Mark Polton. I'm a real estate investor in the greater Charlotte, North Carolina area, in what you would call a no frills, no thrills real estate investor. If you're looking for somebody who's got a big fancy car in the background, nice shiny studio office, or someone who's trying to charge you $19.95 a month for a subscription to their newsletter, I'm not that guy. However, if I did have a newsletter, it'd be worth twice that much. I wanted to talk today about guilt. It's not what I was really going to talk about today, or what I was intending to talk about today, but I wanted to talk about guilt and why it's an inappropriate emotion. So throughout much of my life, I felt a lot of guilt for different things. One, I was a pretty bad kid, especially a teenager, pretty rotten. Treated my parents like crap, stole from them, very entitled, not very grateful, and for a long time I harbored guilt about that. I was also in the Army. 20 days after high school, I went into the Army. About 4 years later, I was forced out by an Air Force officer, and using what I thought was a pretty dishonorable method to do it. He tried to get me taken out on terms that I was mentally unfit to serve. Maybe I was. I certainly think very different than other people. Uh, I've always thought that was an asset in combat and in strategic planning, but apparently he thought it was we needed more yes men in the army than we needed free thinkers. And honestly, I think that that's kind of the way the army's going. Well, so you may ask me, well, why do you feel guilty about that? Well, because my classmates, the people I served with, they went to war, and some of them didn't come back, and I wasn't there to help them out, and I felt a tremendous amount of guilt for a long time. I felt guilt of the disillusionment of my first marriage. I'm not saying that it's 100% my fault, but I certainly take responsibility for the role I played and not being able to be the person that I probably needed to be in that. I felt guilt with my children having to go through a divorce. My son will never know a time when his mother and I were together. His sister does, but she's way too pissed off at me to probably care. But and a lot of other people feel guilt for many other reasons. Uh, you can run the gamut on it, but my mentor told me, and it took me a while to come to this realization: guilt is a very inappropriate. It's also an immature emotion. There's nothing you can do about any of this, right? There's no, you don't have a time machine. You cannot go back and you cannot change the past. Yeah, it would be nice if I had been able to be a different person. It'd be nice if I was able to be the person I am today back then, but I wasn't. There's no time machine. There's no do-overs. There's no mulligans. You can't go back and change it. And because you have no control over it, you should not feel guilty about it. What what you got to do is you have to accept what happened. You have to learn. This is very important. You have to learn from what happened and do not repeat the same mistake. And then you have to go forward and make a better life. Now, there's a lot of people that you're going to meet, and it's surprising how many I meet on a pretty regular basis of people who are so racked by guilt that they can't do anything in life. They just kind of go through the motions. They don't they don't ever really make anything of themselves. They don't get ahead in life. Uh, it seems like guilt is an all-consuming emotion, and I can see that. I was probably there a few times in my life, and it is just a completely inappropriate emotion. So how do you get past it? Well, the first thing you got to do is you have to well, in my case, I needed to quiet the mind. See, there's a conversation that goes on in your head, and hey, maybe this is why the Air Force officer thought I was mentally unfit to serve. But I think that whether you want to be truthful or not, you would have to agree that there is a conversation that goes on in your head. There's you, and then there's another voice, and it's usually a pretty egotistical, immature voice. It's the one that screams up and down, or screams and jumps up and down when you don't get your way, telling you that you've been cheated. That's called the mind, and the mind is actually a pretty terrible thing unless you quiet it. Now, you might have thought I was going to say a mind is a terrible thing to waste. Um, I think you actually need to, if you could probably get rid of your mind, that second voice in your head, you'd probably be much better off. So for me, I had to quiet the mind, and it took a long time. I had to be very intentional about it. I went through many, many self help books, several coaching courses, and spent many, many hours uh, working on different techniques to help quiet the mind. And if you're actually interested in how you go about quieting the mind, at least one exercise that worked for me, and I know this worked for many others, leave a comment below, and I'll be more than happy to share it with you. But it wasn't until I could quiet down the mind that I could release my guilt, because it's that mind, it's that inner child, it's that inner voice telling you that hey, you screwed up, you did bad things. You didn't do what you were supposed to. You were a wuss when you should have been a man. You were a failure when you should have been successful. And it's things like that. And that's where guilt comes from. And it's an immature, inappropriate emotion. Anyways, may go into a little bit deeper on this sometime in the future. Think about it. I think that in the end you'll probably agree with me if you use any amount of logic and reasoning. There's nothing you can do about the past. You cannot change it. So why let it affect you? Anyways, I hope you go out there and live the "you won't stop me" lifestyle. I can tell you this: you're not going to stop me. I don't care who you are. I don't care who you're with. I don't care what you think of me. You're not going to stop me. Financial freedom is literally just around the corner. I wish you success.